just how fast it was coming up. A foot to 2 feet every hour. That was mind-boggling, just how fast it was rising.
So we basically set up shop on top of the levee at that point and watched as the river rose. We stayed there all night, and as the hours went on, the smell was the one thing that we all just you couldn't ignore. It was that diesel smell, all that home heating oil was what we were told that you were smelling, that a lot of people, they can't get that smell, you know, out of their brain every time they think of a flood as big as this one.
For reporters who make their living getting the big story, it didn't get much bigger than this. But at this point, interviews and sound bites weren't needed. There was a feeling in the air and a collective expression of worry.
People's eyes were telling a different story than their mouths were. People were concerned. People were scared. I was scared, and I saw the same look in their eyes. But we were in it together.
There was genuine concern. I can tell you, I saw fear in people's eyes. First responders who I look up to as really heroes from so many past disaster events, that they were really scared. There were 1 or 2 engineers I knew for the county that had tears in their eyes when they didn't know where the river was. They had an idea where it was, but at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, when they could not get an accurate reading, they were scared.
And the one officer actually said to me, "Kyla, if you hear any creaking from the levee, you grab your camera and run." And I thought, this is surreal. And they were legitimately scared, and that's what they were told by engineers. If you hear creaking, run.
When would the river crest? The answer to this question would prove to be not so straightforward.
At that point, we didn't think it was cresting. We knew it was cresting at some point through the night, but we didn't know when.
To the north, the numbers weren't adding up. It began to raise some eyebrows.
Waverly above flood stage, Towanda above flood stage, and the one that's closest to us is Mashopin. And you're looking at the forecasted crest from Mashopin, and it's cresting above the forecast. Now, this isn't making sense. They're going above forecast there. Well, why are we still so low?
Things didn't add up. People send in pictures from West Nanticoke. All I see is Bancos. I see the top of the sign sticking up above the roof. That's not 38 feet. So that set off an alarm bell in my head. Then people start to send in pictures of how far in West Pittston the water had gotten. It wasn't 38 feet.
When you see some of the odd things that was happening because of the river, the water boils that were occurring, water just pouring out of the ground when people were fearing levee breaches, and it was several feet of water pouring out of the ground. Just those little oddities that were occurring, it starts to make sense afterwards when you consider that the crest was as high as it was and higher than what initially was said to be the crest.
Several surprises were in store for people watching the river, and a major malfunction would throw a wrench into the science of how the rising waters were being measured.
What's amazing about moving water is it really only takes a couple of inches of moving water to take an entire car that might weigh 2,000 or 3,000 pounds, lift it up and move it. So when you're talking 40 feet plus of raging water, it's just hard to imagine the power that that has.
And just to see highways and roads under several feet of water just poured up to signs, up to the tops of cars, halfway up to buildings and through doors, heartbreaking. You see people, it's their lives, it's their homes, it's their businesses, and you just see them hopeless and helpless, and you just don't know what you can do for them.
But it was just so surreal to see all the devastation and see the flooding, and yet not know exactly how much damage had been caused because it was over the night hours. But just whatever pictures we could get were jaw-dropping enough. And then when it came to light, and then you really saw what happened, to see the river levels, even now, the flood levels on people's homes, what was left behind, it's amazing and heartbreaking.
As the crest controversy was creeping toward the surface in Wilkes-Barre, we were getting a first-hand look at the widespread damage in communities across the area. Eyewitness News reporter Eric Dable was in the thick of the destruction all across northeastern and central Pennsylvania.
I probably have to be honest with you that I saw the devastation and the damage in almost every county. We started out in central Pennsylvania because that's where we originally thought it was going to be the worst, and it did in fact turn out to be some of the worst in Columbia County. In Elysburg, we were down in Knoebels first and foremost, and that's an area that is no stranger to flooding, but they rely on the two creeks that make Knoebels what it is. And as soon as you saw those as soon as you saw those creeks rising, it was daunting. You saw the water and the mud overtaking Crystal Pool there at Knoebels, which is well known to anybody that's been down there. Then we made our way into Union and some other parts of Northumberland, moving on to Columbia County, and that's where we saw houses just completely inundated with water on that very first day as the waters were still rising and the rain was still falling. The next day we went on to Wyoming County and to Bradford County, and to be honest with you, we couldn't even get to some of the hardest hit areas because the roads were washed away. Some of the roads were impassable. Parts of Route 6, which are a mainstay for anybody to get from Scranton to Towanda, you just couldn't even get past Tunkhannock. Downtown Tunkhannock, seeing that area on East Tioga Street, which was just completely submerged in water, and PennDOT crews volunteering their time and going out and taking excavators and bucket trucks to rescue people that were just kind of stuck because the waters came up so fast. And then you saw Mashopin in Upper Wyoming County, where homes that have been prepared for flooding and built on stilts, and they just washed away. The river rose so fast, they just washed these homes into other homes. I remember one interview that we talked to a guy. He said, you know, I used to be the 5th house on the right, and now I'm the 1st house on the right. And that was in Mayo Beach in the Mashopin Township area. It's just that bad.
Yep, it was dominoes. They all come down and stop right at the house.
Then we moved up into Bradford County.
There's no mail in it.
Oh, we do got mail!
Oh.
Mail!
The Wyalusing, Towanda, Rome, Athens, you name it, there wasn't a part of Bradford County that wasn't hit.
This is the dream. That's all in plastic, man.
Yeah, it's still wet.
We'll hang that. That's probably not too valuable.
Better days to come.
Yep.
Oh,
There you
go.
We'll hang that. That's new hope there.
You talk about the smells. Those first few days, there was a big smell of gas. And I remember specifically in Duryea, that night when Duryea was starting to really take on water as the Lackawanna backed up. It was overpowering, so much that we were basically the only ones out there besides the firefighters and the first responders.
Pictures and video left an immediate impression on not only our viewers, but those who cover the news every day. These images would become infamous right from the start, and in some cases, it hit close to home.
We had shown an image of this house crashing into a bridge over and over again. It wasn't until a day later that I got in touch with some of my friends, and it was my friend's in-laws' family's cabin. And you think, okay, we've been showing it, it's this amazing video, you hear the crashing, and then you realize, I know the people who own that home, and you think, holy cow, you know, that's crazy.